Hi guys. Been a little bit since I made a video because let me go to since I made a video because I was working on the 4.26 port and some plugin overhauls. Most of that work was set up for Chaos migration, and I got the plugin working on Chaos and everything ported to it. The problem was Chaos was very, very unstable, inefficient, and honestly nowhere near production ready yet. So Epic moved Chaos back out of 4.26. I had to batch all that stuff away. It's all still in the plugin, so if you load the Chaos branch of the engine currently, you can use the plugin in it. The only difference is the VR vehicle is not compatible because they have completely different base classes for vehicles between Chaos and PhysX, and it's either one or the other. So I can't include U classes with compile time definitions. So you kind of have to delete the car if you want to use it currently. When Chaos is the default physics engine and engine, I can bring back the Chaos car again that I had made. I have it stored waiting. I wouldn't suggest testing Chaos yet. I'll go back to it partway through 4.26, see if there's been enough improvements to be worthwhile, but I mean, it was tanking the engine. Everything was unstable. It was very, very laggy. It did not have any decent physics interactions. And that's not to say anything necessarily negative about Chaos, because it's probably going to be a great solver when it's finished. It's just nowhere near finished yet. I don't know why it was going to be considered to be the default engine for this version. So thankfully they did not go live with that, because this would not be a workable engine version if they had. It does have a lot of cool features though, and I can't wait to actually play around with those when it's usable. Something I really hope that they get to fixing is the unit of measure. Well, I guess the force measurements, the units that they use for that is different in Chaos than it is in PhysX. So things like constraint stiffness and dampening is not the same. It's actually a little hard to track down what makes a good constraint currently, because the constraints were in production, but the forces not being the same would mean that if you went over to Chaos instead of PhysX, you would have to reset all of the stiffness and damping on all of your objects and all the constraint settings. I mean, that's honestly not ideal. I can't just apply a scalar to everything to convert it to Chaos, because it doesn't quite work like that. So it'll just straight up have to be a complete fine-tuning overhaul pass. Another thing is Chaos does not have the force-based constraint setup that PhysX does, which I'm using for the weapons and things like that. So the weapon behavior will have to be really fine-tuned to work with the Chaos solver. And I'm not even quite sure how the Chaos solver is going to work with Melee yet, obviously, because it's not in a stable enough position for me to even be tested. Aside from that, when I realized that Chaos wasn't going to go live in engine and that I couldn't even finish working on it anyways because it wasn't viable, I decided I'd do some plugin changes. So it's in the migration guide for 4.26. It'd be a rough blueprint migration if you're trying to take the current template, move into a project you had based off of an earlier one, so I wouldn't suggest doing that necessarily. But I now set the hands to be different, so one controls movement, one controls turning. So I actually bound, snap, turn in engine for people, that so they don't have to search around for it, and smooth turn too. You can change it with setting your dominant hand here. So my dominant hand is now left hand, and right hand does my turning. Grasping hands are now the default hands in the template. The original hands are just nonsensical. I didn't really ever use them, so I'd never messed with them too much. I used controller visualization mainly, the one that was showing off how to procedurally load the controllers. And since I'm looking at converting the plugin entirely to OpenXR as soon as possible, I had to delete that controller visualization pathway because it's OpenVR only. So that's gone, and the reference is on the website for how to do that for people that want to bring it back. But in template, that's gone, so people don't have to worry about the cross-platform issues with that. Oops, this hand. Also, another thing is the OpenVR chaperone component that shows the room scale box around this teleport reticle that Epic has. I deleted that because that's also not OpenXR compatible. Not a big problem. No one teleports with a big rectangle around their stuff anyways. I think everyone pretty much deletes that from their implementations, so not a big deal. Something else that was deleted was I had... Still not used to this control scheme. I've been on 4.25 last couple days. I had it so that the FPS character would use the manual grip offset so that you could hold your hand out like this, not have to use a grip profile and like realign everything. But I wanted to get rid of the manual offsets because it's not something people generally should be using, and it made the gripping more confusing in the template. So I got rid of that and also put that up on the website for reference, and that cleaned up the gripping code for the character a decent amount so that it's more clear. Some of the movement changes being one hand only control is that I'm sampling the controllers a bit differently. So like, what are you doing, dog? So that run in place works off of one controller pressing its movement key, but it still samples all of the controllers. My dog likes it when I run because I'm usually playing with him. I'll stop that. Same with arm swing. It samples both controllers now by default instead of one or both, depending on which one's controlling. And, I mean, that's the major things. The migration notes on the website say the changes, so you can go over those and look at it. I just wanted to give an update because I know people were interested in trying out Chaos, and obviously, well, Chaos doesn't come with 4.26 right off the bat. You can compile the custom engine version that has Chaos on it and use that if you want Chaos. You just will have to delete the car and probably the source file for the physics car. So, hey, not much I can do about that. I got a lot of things to add to 4.26 now that I'm converting to OpenXR. The very first version of the OpenXR expansion module out in the in the both repositories currently. I'm going to implement the OpenXR hand tracking as well. Something I ran into with that is it's not ideal with, say, index controllers since it registers as the controller mapping. I don't know. We'll see if they can get that extended in OpenXR because it's very not ideal to only have access to the controller tracking for the mode where you're actually holding onto a controller, which I'm not in OpenXR at the moment because it's a little unstable. So I have the full finger curls or full hand transform if I wanted it. But if I was, the only thing I could do is pull a skeletal transform. So if I was holding a controller, I couldn't have the flat hand like that or anything because there's no curls either. So I'm hoping they'll get that revised. There's some other surprises too, but I'll go over them in a later video deeper into this engine version. I'm going to play around more than I normally do during the actual engine version because it's already a rough migration. A lot of people might skip this migration. And 4.27 right before UE5 is also going to be a rough migration, so this would be the time for me to play around and make as many changes as I can that are somewhat project breaking so that people that want to stay on the stable 4.25 can, at least as stable as it is. Here there's still issues with it. But anyways, I'll keep you informed about other things that are going to happen. And I guess you read the patch notes on 4.26. See it.